Hi, second graders. Today we are going to be doing some measurement word problems. So we're going to be looking at different measurements and then using addition and subtraction to solve to find an answer to the problem. So our objective is we can and we will solve measurement word problems using a tape diagram. So we're going to be using tape diagrams today to solve. And I'll go over what those mean if you don't remember, so don't worry about it. We're going to use the same strategy that we used last time when we did word problems: read, draw, write. So, when you read the problem, you have to figure out what information you know. You might know the whole, you might know the part, or you might know both parts. When you know the whole or the total and one of the parts, we're going to use subtraction to solve. So I wrote, when we know the whole and one part, we subtract to find the difference. So this is the part we'll be solving for. Whole minus part equals part. It equals the other part that we need to be solving for. When you read the problem, you might sometimes get other information though. So if they tell you both of the parts in the problem, you're going to use addition to find the whole. So I wrote, when we know both parts, we add to find the total or the whole. So part plus part equals whole. Whole minus part equals the other part. Part plus part equals whole. So that's important to remember, and you can always go back to these two slides once you figure out what information you know in your problems. We're going to do a couple together using the read, draw, write strategy. I'm going to be going through these fairly quickly, so before I move on to each new step, I want you guys to pause and solve on your own first, and then press play when you're ready to check your work. The first step is to read. Luann has a piece of ribbon that is 1 yard long. She cuts off 33 inches to tie a gift box. How many inches of the ribbon are not used? One more time. Luann has a piece of ribbon that is 1 yard long. She cuts off 33 inches to tie a gift box. How many inches are not used? So it sounds like we have the total. She has 1 yard and she cuts off 33 inches. That's one part. We have to find the other part. Now, something that's tricky about this problem is it says 1 yard. We have to remember something. 1 yard equals 3 feet. 1 foot is 12 inches. So 3 feet must be 12 plus 12 plus 12. So 1 yard equals 36 inches. I have to know how many inches is in 1 yard because the rest of the problem is asking about inches. So I need to make sure I can answer that question using inches. So instead of saying 1 yard for the rest of this problem, I'll be saying 36 inches because that's the same thing. So I put in my tape diagram, I know the total is 1 yard or 36 inches, and I know she used 33 inches. I have to figure out how much ribbon is not used, so the second part. So when I know a whole and one part, I have to subtract to find the other part. So I'm going to do an equation that says 36 minus 33 to figure this out. So we read, you should have drawn this tape diagram. If you haven't, maybe pause and do it now, or you can do it for the next one. And now we're going to write an equation. So why don't you write an equation that shows how we're going to solve. Press play when you're ready to move on. Here's my equation. 36 minus 33 inches equals 3 inches. So my answer is 3. There are 3 inches that aren't used. And I can go into my tape diagram and replace this question mark with 3 inches. So 33 plus 3 equals 36. So I know my answer is correct. All right, we're going to go through 2 more. So I want you to make sure you're pausing and drawing tape diagrams and writing equations to help you solve this next one. Elijah runs 68 yards in a 100-yard race. How many more yards does he have to run? Let's read it 2 times. Elijah runs 36 yards in a 100-yard race. How many more yards does he have to run? So now we're going to draw a tape diagram. I want you to think about what you know. He ran 36. The total race is 100 yards. I want you to draw a tape diagram now to show me how you're going to solve for this problem. Remember, you should have 2 parts in a whole, one of those parts is going to be a question mark because we don't know yet how many more yards he needs to run. Pause here to draw your tape diagram, plus press play when you're ready to move on. Here's my tape diagram. 100 yards is the total race. There's 68 yards that he already ran. We need to figure out what the difference is, what is left. So once again, we have the whole and one part. So we need to subtract. I want you guys to now check your tape diagram to make sure it's the same as mine. Then write a subtraction problem to solve for how much more he needs to run. Pause to do that. Press play when you are ready. So you should have something that looks like this. 100 yards minus 68 yards equals blank. Now in my head, I solved this by thinking 68 is really close to 70. If I did, it's only 2 away. So I'm going to add those 2 on and pretend I have 70. So if I do 100 take 70 away, I get 30. But then I just have to add those 2 yards back on because I added a couple extra. So 32. So 100 minus 68 equals 32 yards. He has 32 yards left to run. Now, if you don't want to solve that way in your head, remember that you can always solve using one of the strategies that we have learned in the past, like subtracting across 0. So 100 minus 36 equals. I make sure my 1s are lined up and my 10s. Now I can't do 0 minus 6. I also can't take from this 10s place. I have to take from the hundreds. So I cross out this 100. Now I don't just have 0 here anymore, I have 10. So now I can borrow and bring it over to the 1s place. So I take from my 10. Now I have 9. I bring that over here and I have 10 over here. So that's when you subtract across zeros. It gets a little tricky, so make sure your numbers are lined up really evenly. 10 minus 6 is 4. Oh my gosh, I made a mistake. Okay, so remember how we solve across zeros? If you don't want to solve mentally, you can use the same strategy that we've used in the past, where we borrow. You're going to line your numbers up, make sure your 1s are in the same place, your 10s, and your hundreds. I can't do 1 minus 8 because I can't do 0 minus 8 because you can't take away from 0. So I'm going to go to my 10s place to borrow. Oh, we have another 0. So now I have to go to my hundreds. I'm going to take this 1. I don't have any hundreds left. And I'm going to bring it to my 10s place. So I had 0, but now 100 is the same as 10 tens. So now I have 10 tens. 10 minus 6. Oh wait, I can't do that yet. Remember, I always start with subtracting in the 1s place. So now I can borrow. I'm taking 1 10 away. 1 10 is the same as 10 1s. Now I can subtract. 10 minus 8 is 2. 9 minus 6 is 3. So it's the same answer. 32 yards left to run. You can do it in your head by making a 10 mentally and then adding that back on at the end. Or you can solve across zeros by doing 100 minus 68 vertically. All right, we've got one more left to go. I want you to make sure you're drawing your tape diagram, and I want you to make sure that you are solving. All right, last problem. Chris has a 57-inch piece of string and another piece that is 15 inches longer than his first string. What is the total length of both strings? So this time we're trying to find the total. I want you guys to draw a tape diagram now. Pause, draw it, and press play when you're ready to move on. Here's what I drew. 57 inches was one of my strings, so that was one part. The other one was tricky. It's not just 15. It says another piece that is 15 inches longer than the first string. So if the first string was 57, my second piece is 57 plus 15. So my first step is I have to solve and figure out what number goes in this part. So I solved 57 plus 15 equals 72 inches. So my second part, I put the answer back in and it's 72 inches. So right now, I want you guys to make sure you have the same tape diagram. Then solve. This is different than our last two. We don't have the total this time. So remember, when we have both parts, we need to add the two parts together to get the whole. So I want you to stop and do that now. Press play when you're ready to check. I solved 57 plus 72 equals. Now in my head, I did 5 tens plus 7 tens. 50 plus 70 is 120. And then I added my 1s. 7 and 2 is 9. 120 plus 9 is 129 inches. You can solve that way. You can draw it vertically. Whatever is best for you for solving addition and subtraction is totally fine with me. So the total length of this piece of string was 129 inches. Okay, that's all we have today. I want you guys to remember the strategies. Read, draw, write. When you're drawing, I want you to be really careful to make tape diagrams that show parts and wholes. If you have the whole in one part, we subtract. If you have both parts, we add. You have 3 word problems today for your worksheet that are pretty similar to the ones that I did. So if you're struggling, always go back to the video and watch again. All right, have fun, guys. As always, reach out with any questions you might have. You're going to do a great job today, I know it.